Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Andrew Stott and I'm the Emperor of Stomaria. Today I want to talk about Stomaria's allies and friends.
This is how nations are built and empires are forged. For every nation that becomes integrated into the empire, for every territory that we acquire, for every citizen that joins us, for every drop of water we collect, for every seed that we sow, for every watt of energy we produce, for every silver bar that we stamp, we are securing our future.
So as many of our followers, our supporters and our citizens will already know, Stomaria has long held the position that we do not engage in mutual recognition treaties or other sorts of pointless agreements with other nations, other communities, or particular individuals that happen to have a flag. We just don't see the benefit in it. We don't engage in that practice because there is no real reason to do so. We do not require someone else's recognition for us to exist. It doesn't empower us. It doesn't embolden us. It doesn't strengthen our cause or our community. And so why would we bother engaging in that kind of activity? With that said, we have always held the position that in order to build that kind of relationship with another nation, with another community, or indeed another individual with a flag in some cases, we really need to have a tangible reason to do so. And very early on, the position was very clear. We would only have formal relations with others if we could interact with them in a very real and direct way. And so the very first ally that we identified, that we actually went to go and meet, we actually had an exchange, and you guessed it, it was the Kingdom of Wayward. And we went there, or I went there specifically, to the Kingdom of Wayward soon after we were founded, and we purchased some eggs for some silver. It was long before the silver Stomarian stater coin had become a thing, but we did have silver coins that Stomaria was using at the time, just generic bullion, and we used that to purchase some eggs from Wayward. And I went back several more times. We exchanged gifts, and we really got along, King Raoul and me, even back then. And we formed an alliance based on that premise. We had a declaration of friendship, and that was that. We were the first nation, the first community, I believe, that actually visited the Kingdom of Wayward, and they were the first ones that we visited. And so it was a very very important step in the right direction. And since then, obviously, the Kingdom of Wayward has gone on to become a member state of the Empire. So they have become fully integrated into the wider community that we're looking to build, which is fantastic. The next nation, or I would probably say the next individual with a flag, this would probably fall under, was New Westphalia. Now, they were actually a nation that we reached out to. We went to go and visit the president of New Westphalia, and we had interesting conversations. They pointed us in the right direction in terms of helping us to acquire some custom-made merchandise and all the rest of it. So there was less of a tangible benefit there, but we did, I did go and meet the president of New Westphalia, and we formed an alliance on that premise. So we, was hoping to be more long-term, but unfortunately, shortly after that, they actually dissolved, which is a shame because they had been in existence for many years before Stomaria was even founded. And when it comes to longevity, we do tend to look for those that have been around for a lot longer, with the expectation that they have a bit more staying power. They're not just going to fold. But unfortunately, this does happen now and again, even with all of our sort of safeguards and all of our criteria, which only get stricter with time. It just happens so often, and there's not really anything you can do about it. But the third alliance that we ever had was several years later. So the Kingdom of Wayward is in 2019. New Westphalia was in February 2020, I'm going to say, literally just before the pandemic hit. And then I think the next one was the Princedom of Moorland, which I'm trying to think now. I don't want to get this wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was 2021 that they actually formed an official alliance with us. But just saying that, I feel like maybe it was early 2022. See, I should have done some research before I made this video. But anyway, we formed an alliance with the Princedom of Moorland, but they were only an ally for a month or two before they actually became integrated into the Empire of Stomaria as an observer state, and they remained so until relatively recently, where unfortunately we did have to void their membership. We had to effectively kick them out of the Empire, purely because they went inactive. We've not heard from them for a very long time now. I don't know if they're still operating in any shape or form, but we've certainly not heard from them for the longest time. And again, that's a condition of ours. If they're not going to be in constant communication with us, I say constant, but even infrequent is fine, but as long as we know what's happening. Otherwise it's pointless. And they actually became a part of the Empire because they actually saw a reason to do so, and we did have high hopes for them when they joined. But the reason that we formed an alliance in the first place was because they were going to support us in a very real and direct way, and they did. We actually had a trade agreement set up between Moorland and Wayward very briefly. They contributed to the production of Stomarian stater coins. In fact, the contributions that Prince Alexander of Moorland actually made to Stomaria was so significant that he was actually appointed as a Lord of Stomaria, which just goes to show, just how committed initially they were to assisting the wider empire prosper. And then I suppose the next alliance that we had would be the Kingdom of Lithua. Now, the Kingdom of Lithua is a nation, a community that we actually went to go visit. We had an exchange of produce, so we exchanged silver Stomarian stater coins for salmon and wines, and we were hoping for a longer term trading relationship and a longer term partnership, but unfortunately at the tail end of 2022, when we decided to basically pull up the drawbridge in a more meaningful way, when it came with interactions with the micronational community, the people that sort of lurk in the dark corners of the internet for one reason or another. But the sorts. There's a lot of drama, a lot of bickering, a lot of nonsense within micronationalism. And when I talk about micronationalism and micronational community, it is effectively just forums and groups online. And being a part of that was of no interest to us. We didn't want to engage with others in that capacity because it wasn't providing any benefit to us, but it was taking up a lot of my time having to respond to nonsense. And since then, which has been well over 6 months now, it's been a lot more enjoyable to be able to do what we have been doing without having to worry about the nonsense that goes on in those circles. I'm sure we are talked about. I'm sure they are still spreading, their usual malicious lies or condemnations or sanctions or whatever else, things that they've been doing for years as it is, but I don't have to acknowledge or engage with it, and it's fantastic to be able to do that. Lithua, unfortunately, we decided to cut ties, so to avoid the alliance at the time, because we just wanted to have a fresh start for the new year. However, we did eventually reach out to Lithua just to ask if they were still interested in potentially supplying wines for silver, and we even actually invited them to the Imperial Summit in June, but we just never heard a response from them. I'm not quite sure what they're doing, if anything. I do hope they're keeping well, but again, I couldn't say for any degree of certainty what they're doing these days. But those were the only 4 nations or communities that we actually reached out to build a formal alliance. And the common theme throughout all of that is that there has to be a tangible benefit. There has to be a point to it. And until relatively recently, we decided to focus exclusively simply on the expansion of the Empire of Stomaria itself. That is to say, nations and communities that wanted to form a part of the wider empire, the community that we're building, that want to take advantage of the benefits that there are with association with Stomaria. That is what we are going to focus on. However, we would also like to begin to reach out to those who may not either be particularly interested in forming a part of the Empire of Stomaria, or would not even necessarily qualify to become a part of Stomaria's empire. And so we have decided to open the door a crack, if you like. And so what we've done is, I posted this all on the Stomarian website, and you can glean all the details from there. But the long and the short of it is that we have introduced 2 new categories in addition to the member state and the observer state of the empire itself. So for those that don't know, a member state of the empire is a nation or community that's been fully integrated into the empire, whereas an observer state is a nation or community that has, it meets most of the criteria, but doesn't meet all of the criteria, and so they are an observer state. They're not a full member. And so there are layers to this, in the sense that you have Stomaria in the centre, then you have the member states, then you have the observer states, and then going further than that, we're going to have what we're going to define as allies and friends. And it's based on the same kind of principles. So allies are going to be nations and communities that do meet all of the necessary criteria for an alliance. I'm not going to go through all the nitty-gritty details now. That'll be on our website. You can review that. It's broadly in line with the criteria involved in becoming a member state or an observer state of the Empire of Stomaria, but there's a lot less to it, because obviously we don't expect you to integrate that nation or community into the empire. So there's less demands. There's certainly less benefit, but there are also less demands. Whereas a friend of Stomaria is effectively an observer state in terms of the alliance part of the equation. So you have member states and observer states, and then you have allies and friends. So friends, just to reiterate, are nations and communities that want to be affiliated with Stomaria as an ally, but again, don't quite meet all the necessary criteria. And like an observer state, there is simply less benefit to it, in the sense that we won't promote that as heavily, if you like, as we will an ally. We won't promote an ally as heavily as an observer state. We won't promote an observer state as much as a member state. And obviously, the further along you come, the more benefits there are. A member state, for example, will benefit from the ability to acquire premium free silver through Stomaria. So there's no taxes or fees or anything. We will allow nations and communities, the government bodies of those nations and communities, to actually acquire small amounts of premium free silver through Stomaria, which is going to make it, I imagine, probably the cheapest silver in the world to actually acquire. And that is one of the more tangible benefits of being closer to the center, if you like, closer to Stomaria itself. But for those that are interested in some kind of formal affiliation with Stomaria proper and with the Empire as a whole, then for those that don't necessarily want to form a part of it, we are considering, and we've even reached out to a handful already, of nations and communities who fit the bill. And we want to be able to begin to broaden a horizon, include more nations, include more communities within the network that we're actually building, in terms of trade, in terms of commerce, in terms of enterprise, in terms of the community spirit that we're looking to establish. But as I say, this is something that is a work in progress. We still do have criteria. It's not just allowing everyone and anyone to be associated with Stomaria. We still have certain criteria and terms and conditions that we want to have adhered to. But I will say right off the bat that even though that we do have criteria based on longevity or territory or ideology or activity and all of this sort of thing, the one thing that we cannot compromise on, and the one thing that will prohibit, I imagine, a lot of nations communities from becoming affiliated with Stomaria is the age of the leaders or the founders of the nation, of the community. Because we can get around a nation or community only being around for 6 months, or perhaps their governing body has changed a little bit more frequently than we would have liked. We can potentially work around that. But something that we will not do is cooperate formally with nations or communities that are led by minors. And I don't really need to spell out the reasons that is a point of contention for us. That's a red line that we won't cross, but we will not affiliate with anyone that is a minor. And so, that's all there is to say on that one, really. But that aside, we will consider all the other criteria, all the other terms and conditions that we have in place, and nations will be judged accordingly. So, with that in mind, if you are the leader or you represent a nation or a community, and you would like to be affiliated with Stomaria, you would like to become integrated into the trade network without becoming formally integrated into the empire itself, then our door is somewhat open. As I said, we still have a very strict list of criteria and terms and conditions, and we do ensure that there's going to be adhered to, but we do want to start involving other people within our circle as we gradually expand and grow and develop, with our citizenship numbers now at an all-time high, and with the progress and developments that we have made now far beyond anything that we've accomplished before. We are ready to take the next few steps in including a wider group of people within the nation building and the empire building process that we're engaged with, and forming alliances and friendships with the nations communities does play a part in that. So, with all of that said, if you did want to support Stomaria and show your support here, then please feel free to give this video a like, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll catch you in the next one.